Hi, I'm Tram. This is Judy and Connie. We're here from the SALTovation's TaxOps team, and we're going to talk about the sales and use tax transaction system in Colorado.
So first
So,
we're going to talk about what is it, because I think a lot of people don't know what it is. And we've obviously, two of us live and work in Colorado. Tram lives in Texas, but she used to live in Colorado and is familiar with Colorado law, given that she went to law school here in Colorado. But it's been a system that's been put in place to work with the state of Colorado in order for the home rule cities of Colorado to have one point of filing and registration. So you can file all your taxes in one place through Colorado Revenue Online. So what that means is we have 70 home rule cities that have separate filings in each separate city on their websites and whatever, or filing via snail mail that you would send those returns off to 70 times plus the state. So it's a lot more difficult to comply in Colorado because we have more jurisdictions than any other state, which is more than the entire country, quite honestly, 71 with the home rules in the state. So now it'll be one system of record where you can file all your filings, your licenses and all that. And so Connie, what is the home rules? What is a home rule? Do you think? Explain that to our viewers.
Yeah, so home rule cities, we've got about 70, as Judy mentioned. These are jurisdictions that have decided to branch off from the state, and they administer their own taxes. So they oftentimes have different rules, different taxability, different rates, and so it's almost like a completely different jurisdiction to pay attention to. So it creates a lot of administrative difficulties for taxpayers who are trying to comply with all the various rules and filing requirements and that sort of thing when they're all different all across the state.
Right. And then SUTS is supposed to at least put some process around that to say you don't have to have 71 filings, right? And you don't have to have 71 registrations. You can do it all in one portal, the SUTS portal, and then activate with each of the individuals electronically, so all your money and your information will get remitted by the state to the various cities of our state so that your filings can be done. So that should ease some administration for taxpayers, because what we find happens typically is people don't bother to register in the home rule cities of Colorado. They only register in the larger ones like Denver or Boulder, Colorado, or Thornton is a larger city, or Aurora, Colorado Springs. Those seem to be our larger jurisdictions, more populous in the state. So people comply sometimes with them, but don't realize that Dacono is a whole rule city. Has anybody heard of Dacono? I think 10,000 people live there, so you probably haven't, but it happens to be a home rule city. Aspen is a home rule city. Breckenridge is a home rule city. Vail, Steamboat, Winter Park. Those of you who like to ski, you probably heard of those places, but they are home rule cities, and they'll have their own tax rules and their own license requirements and their own registration process. So it makes it complicated. So people are like, I'm not going to bother to register there because it's just one more difficult thing for me to do as a small business. I can't do it. But now the SUT system is going to make that administration simpler, hopefully. But we want to make you aware of some of the traps that we're finding with regards to that. There's a lot of media going out there to get you to register. And this is awesome. Can you hear my dogs barking?
yeah, no, they're excited about this too, and hopefully,
what is happening? All of a sudden, something's happening. They're all running to the front door. Anyway, so Tram, why don't you talk about what that means from the SUTS? Like, who's in the system of the 70? Where are we going with that?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of how it logistically works, right? As cities agree, right, to participate in this streamlined sales and use tax transaction system, they have to go through this process of agreeing, right, with this initiative and signing on, agreeing to say, yes, we will allow our taxpayers to join in on the system and, have all their taxes filed and remitted through that one system. But before they get there, they have to sign the agreement with under SUTS with the state of Colorado. And then after they sign that agreement, logistically, I think, the taxpayers have to, they have to figure out how to even enroll. And I think that is kind of the challenge at this point, because we, truly don't know how it's going to roll out, because not all cities are on SUTS. I think we have 17 out of the 71 cities that haven't signed on or haven't finalized their agreement to participate. So I think that can get pretty complicated at this point if there are taxpayers who are interested and ready to sign on and make it less complicated.
Right. And I think that's a thing that we've struggled with is the push and pull of like which cities are on, keeping track of it. By no stretch is it linear. Like the A cities got them first and the B cities. It's not like that at all. It's over the map of like which cities are in, where are you doing business? So it's really hard for us to figure out how can we just set it one time or do we have to do a piecemeal approach? And it seems like at this point, we're still doing a piecemeal approach. And I guess I would say, as frustrating as that is to me sometimes, it takes time for government to connect, right? So we have the agreement process, then we have to actually make it work. So transactionally and from a cyber perspective, the back end needs to work whereby the state system interacts with the city system. They need to ingest all that data, put it in their system for filing in order to reconcile it to taxpayer records, in order to make sure the money gets allocated to the right account. Think about it as a bank account. You have an account with the city, the state's getting the money. How do I get my money, right? And how do I make sure that taxpayer is compliant? So that's a logistical issue, a hurdle that the cities have to overcome. And they don't have a ton of resources. Some of these smaller cities, like I mentioned, Dacono, who's the IT person making sure it all happens? So that's another challenge, just having the resources to dedicate the time to connect the systems from a perspective that you and I will never see. So it will be seamless to a taxpayer. So that's part of it. So that's where we're seeing some challenges with actually getting automated into SUTS. So we were hoping for a July 1 live date, right? But we don't have every city in there yet. So we're struggling as practitioners and advising our clients about how to register. So it's important to talk to an expert before you go out and register in all these cities through SUTS and make sure you understand who the cities are and references. In fact, the DR 1002 is a taxpayer document put out for the Colorado Department of Revenue puts this out. And it's a great way for you to see all our cities and counties and the rates and their phone numbers and all that good stuff, because it's right out there for public consumption. It is updated, I believe, twice a year. And then there's a DR 800, which talks about all the statutory cities and their little location code numbers. That's another thing. Each city has a special coding so that the money gets allocated to the right bucket on your return, which is something we went to a destination filing several years ago, where you had to activate a lot of cities outside of where you were actually located, maybe Denver, but now you did have to activate some of the other cities that are what we call statutory, meaning state collected. So that's another challenge that we're worried that taxpayers won't understand. And then also, what about the historic nexus, Connie? What do you think about that in lieu of, if you've already been doing business in a city but never filed there?
Yeah, so SUTS raises an interesting concern for taxpayers who may have done business, may have had one sale to somebody in Dacono. They never registered. They didn't think they had to register, but there's all this period of time where they didn't they didn't file, they didn't register and collect or remit the tax. They probably owe the tax to Dacono. And so if you register on SUTS using your prospective registration date going forward from today, say, there could be a historic nexus issue. And so we're just concerned that taxpayers may be audited, or there may be some issues raised with that where there could be some big money involved with that.
Right, because if you hadn't filed ever, you don't have a statute of limitations. And you said as a business, it's not practical for me to file in Dacono because I only had one sale there one time. Even though I went on site, I delivered that sale. I physically was present in order to activate that sale, make it happen. So I had a duty to register in Dacono, but I didn't do it. And now I'm going to register on SUTS, and you have to put a date you start doing business in the city, which would be a future date typically, because you're not going to remediate the past. So we don't know what the cities are going to do with late taxpayers who had prior nexus. I compare this to Wayfair. We are seeing with Wayfair went enacted in July 1 of 2018, and we're now, what, 3 years into that, past that date. Can you believe that? Well, we're starting to see, we were already seeing a couple states, Maine in particular, going after late registrants. So they had a July 1 effective date, and companies register in October, November, the following year. And they said, why didn't you register July 1? Maine is sending notices to these taxpayers because they're registered. So they have an access to your information. They know who you are, and they know what the date you started doing business. And so they're asking that. And we're seeing that now with Wisconsin, and we're going to start seeing that maybe with some more states. So that's what we're concerned about the cities doing, is saying, why didn't you register when SUTS was live? Why did you wait? And it's fine to do that future if you never sold there and you didn't have nexus. So we just don't know what the historic responsibility could be. And as a taxpayer with nexus, you have a responsibility as a vendor to collect and remit the tax. And if you don't remit the tax, that's still on you.